I'm about to do something that could destroy my entire life. But if I don't do this, I'll lose the only thing that matters. This is Rachel Torres, and tonight, she's breaking the law. In exactly 3 minutes, she'll walk into a courtroom and refuse to hand over a baby that doesn't legally belong to her. A baby whose grandfather has just won custody. A baby that a dying woman placed in her arms 5 months ago with a final, desperate plea. But this story doesn't start here. It starts with blood on hospital floors, a mother's last breath, and a promise that would tear Rachel's world apart. What Rachel held in her arms that night wasn't just a dying baby. She was holding a choice between right and wrong, between law and love, between a promise made to a stranger and a life she'd built for years. And what happened next changed everything. This is one of those real-life stories that proves heartwarming stories don't come easy. This is a story about hope, grief, and the moment when you have to decide what kind of person you're going to be. If stories like these touch your heart, hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next 30 minutes will show you what happens when love collides with the law, and a woman has to choose between losing everything or betraying a dying wish. 5 months ago, Rachel Torres was drowning. Not in water, but in failure. For 3 years, she and her husband Matthew had been trying to have a baby. 3 years of negative pregnancy tests, failed fertility treatments, and a marriage that was slowly dying under the weight of disappointment. Rachel was a nurse in the ER at St. Mary's Hospital in Columbus, Ohio. She was good at her job. Maybe too good, because work had become her escape from a home that felt emptier every day. Extra shifts, overnight shifts, anything to avoid the silence between her and Matthew. October 15th started like any other Friday night. Rachel clocked in at 7 p.m., ready for the usual chaos. Drunk drivers, broken bones, the predictable disasters of a Friday night. Nothing prepared her for 9:47 p.m. Rachel was the first one to reach her. The woman was dying, anyone could see that. Massive internal bleeding. But she wasn't trying to save herself. She was trying to save the baby in her arms. "Help my baby," the woman whispered, her voice barely there. "Please." Rachel shouted for a trauma team while assessing the situation. The baby wasn't breathing right, bluish tint to her skin. But before Rachel could take the child, the woman grabbed her wrist with desperate strength. "Promise me," she gasped, blood at the corner of her mouth. "Promise you'll take care of her. Her name is Isabella, no one else. Promise me." The woman's name was Sarah Mitchell, 23 years old. She died on the operating table 17 minutes later. A drunk driver had run a red light going 70 miles per hour. He walked away. Sarah didn't, and Rachel stood in that corridor, holding 6-month-old Isabella as the baby struggled for breath, with a promise burning in her chest that she had no idea how to keep. For 2 hours, doctors stabilized Isabella. Some bruising, shock from the accident, but she'd survive physically. Then Child Protective Services arrived. A woman named Linda Chen with kind eyes but a professional distance that came from years of dealing with tragedy. "The baby will enter foster care while we locate relatives," Linda explained gently. "She asked me to take care of her," Rachel said. "Sarah's last words were asking me to promise. She said no one else." Linda's expression softened with sympathy. "Parents in crisis say a lot of things, but legally, Isabella needs family or the foster system." Rachel pulled out her phone and called Matthew. When he answered, her voice was steady despite her shaking hands. "Matthew, I need you to come to the hospital, right now. There's someone you need to meet." "Rachel, it's 1 a.m. What's—" "Just trust me, please." 30 minutes later, Matthew walked into the hospital confused and worried. Rachel led him to the nursery window and showed him Isabella. "This is Isabella," Rachel said softly. "Her mother died tonight. In my arms. She asked me to take care of her baby." Matthew stared at that tiny baby through the glass, his hand slowly pressing against the window. "Rachel, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I made a promise. And I'm saying maybe this is why everything else didn't work. Maybe we were supposed to wait for her." It was insane. They knew nothing about this baby's family. They had no legal right to her. But standing there, looking at Isabella, Rachel felt more certain than she'd felt about anything in years. This was meant to be. Rachel did something she'd never done in 7 years of nursing. She called in sick. Then she called Linda Chen and asked what she'd need to do to become Isabella's emergency foster parent. The process moved fast because Rachel was a healthcare professional with a clean background. Within 2 weeks, Isabella was placed in their home. For 6 weeks, it was perfect. Isabella thrived. Rachel fell completely, irrevocably in love. Matthew, who'd been hesitant at first, became a devoted father. This was everything they'd prayed for. Then Linda Chen called with news that shattered everything. "We've located Sarah Mitchell's father. His name is John Mitchell. He lives in Tennessee and he's requesting custody." Rachel felt her world tilt. "What do we know about him?" "He has a record. Drug charges from 8 years ago. Did time. Claims he's been sober 18 months, but given his history and his estrangement from Sarah, we're evaluating his fitness." "Then Isabella stays with us," Rachel said immediately. "It's not that simple. He's blood family. Grandparents have rights." That night, Rachel held Isabella during her bedtime bottle and memorized every detail of her face, because she knew what was coming. A war for the right to be this child's mother. The meeting happened 3 days later at Child Services. Rachel and Matthew sat on one side of a conference table. Across from them sat John Mitchell, late 50s, graying hair, weathered face, tired eyes. He looked at photos of Isabella and tears filled his eyes. "She looks just like Sarah as a baby." John explained his story. Addiction had destroyed his relationship with Sarah. She'd cut contact at 18. He'd gotten sober 18 months ago and had been trying to reach out to her, but she never responded. He didn't know she had a baby until Child Services called to say his daughter was dead. "She's all I have left of Sarah," John said, his voice breaking. "I failed my daughter, but I won't fail her child. I deserve a chance to make things right." Rachel couldn't stay quiet. Sarah's last words were that no one else could take Isabella. She specifically said no one else. Something flickered across John's face. Did she say why? No. She just died. The room fell silent, heavy with unspoken meanings. Linda explained there would be a custody hearing. Courts would decide what was in Isabella's best interest. But the implication was clear. Blood ties mattered. John had a strong case. For 3 months, the battle raged. Evaluations, drug tests, home visits, court dates. John was granted supervised visitation once a week. Rachel would bring Isabella, and she'd watch John hold his granddaughter, sing to her, cry while touching her tiny face. Those visits destroyed Rachel, because John genuinely loved Isabella. He wasn't a monster, he was a broken man trying to make amends, and that made everything so much harder. The custody hearing was scheduled for February 14th, Valentine's Day. Rachel testified about the promise she made, about Sarah's desperate insistence that no one else take her baby. John's lawyer challenged her. "Did Sarah explicitly tell you not to give Isabella to her father?" "No." "So you're interpreting her words to fit what you want, aren't you?" Rachel's anger flared. "I'm honoring a promise. Sarah chose me and I won't betray that trust." Then John testified. He admitted everything. His failures as a father, his addiction, his estrangement from Sarah. His attempts to reconcile that were never answered. "I can't change the past," John said, tears streaming openly. "But Isabella is my second chance. She's all I have left of my daughter. And I swear I won't make the same mistakes again." The testimony lasted hours. Child psychologists, social workers, character witnesses. Rachel felt hope slipping through her fingers like water. Judge Patricia Williams announced she would take a week to review and issue her ruling. That week was agony. Rachel went through the motions of caring for Isabella, but every moment felt fragile, like it might be their last. She memorized the weight of Isabella in her arms, the sound of her laugh, the way she looked when she slept. On the 6th day, Linda called. "John Mitchell wants to meet with you both. No lawyers. He says there's something important." They met at a coffee shop. John was already there, looking older and more tired than ever. He slid a letter across the table. This came 2 days before Sarah died. It got forwarded. I think she finally decided to respond to my letters. Rachel read aloud with trembling voice. The letter began, "Dad." Sarah wrote about receiving his letters, about her anger and hurt, about her daughter, Isabella. The final lines, "I'm not ready yet, but maybe someday I will be. Sarah." "She was going to forgive you," Rachel whispered. John nodded, unable to speak. Finally, "She was going to let me meet Isabella. Then she died, and I never got the chance. I'm so sorry. I've been focused on my rights," John continued. "But after reading this again and again, thinking about Sarah's last words to you, I understand now. Sarah was protecting Isabella from a broken family, from relatives who didn't care, from me with my history. She didn't trust us. When she said no one else, she meant no one from her family." Rachel could hardly breathe. "What are you saying?" John pulled out an official document. "I'm relinquishing my custody claim. I'm supporting your adoption of Isabella." The world stopped. Matthew grabbed Rachel's hand under the table. "Why?" Rachel whispered. "Because Sarah chose you, and because watching you with Isabella, that's what a parent does. I can't change my past, but I can honor my daughter's final wish." "But you love her." "I do. But love is about what's best for her. You and Matthew are her parents. I see that now." Matthew spoke suddenly. "We don't want to cut you out. If you're willing, we want you in Isabella's life. As her grandfather. Open adoption, regular visits. She should know about Sarah." John's eyes filled with tears. "You'd let me be part of her life?" "You're her grandfather," Rachel said. "Your family." 2 weeks later, they stood in Judge Williams's courtroom again. But this time, John stood beside Rachel and Matthew. "Your Honor," John said, "I'm here to support Rachel and Matthew Torres's petition to adopt my granddaughter Isabella. I believe this is what my daughter Sarah wanted, and I believe it's what's best for Isabella." Judge Williams looked at them with an expression Rachel couldn't read. "This is highly unusual. This whole situation is unusual, Your Honor," John replied. "But sometimes family isn't just about blood. Sometimes it's about love and sacrifice and doing what's right even when it hurts." The judge was silent for a long moment. Then she smiled, the first smile Rachel had seen from her. "Petition granted. Isabella Mitchell is hereby adopted by Rachel and Matthew Torres." The paperwork was finalized. Isabella officially became Isabella Rachel Torres, and John became Grandpa John with scheduled visits, video calls, birthday celebrations. He stayed sober 6 years now. And he became the grandfather Sarah never got to see him become. Rachel never told Isabella the full story of that night in the hospital parking lot. The night she'd almost done something desperate and illegal. The night she'd sat in her car ready to run rather than lose her daughter. She never had to, because love found a way that didn't require breaking the law. It just required breaking down walls instead. These are the real-life stories that matter. Not the easy ones, but the ones where broken people choose love over pain, where hopeful journeys require sacrifice, where heartwarming stories come from the hardest choices. Sarah Mitchell died saving her daughter, but in a way, she saved Rachel too. She saved Matthew. She even saved John. Because sometimes the most broken moments create the most beautiful families. Today, Isabella is a happy, loved 5-year-old who knows she's special. She knows her birth mother loved her so much that she made sure Isabella would have the best life possible. She knows her grandfather is working every day to be the man his daughter deserved. And she knows her parents, Rachel and Matthew, loved her from the very first moment they held her. This is what happens when a dying woman places her baby in a stranger's arms. This is what happens when broken people choose redemption over resentment. This is what happens when love wins. If this story touched your heart, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because real-life stories like these remind us that family isn't just about blood. It's about love, sacrifice, and the promises we keep even when the world tells us to let go. Drop a comment and tell me, what would you have done in Rachel's position? Would you have fought for Isabella? Thank you for watching, and remember, Sometimes the family we're meant to have finds us in the most unexpected ways.